welcome the amazing Mr. Amos Kennedy.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and I'd like to thank BIMA for the Dog Age Festival. And would like to start by saying that about 7 years ago, I heard the first land recognition when I was in Canada. And then about 2 years later, I was at a university, and one of the vice presidents stood up and did land recognition. And at that point, I thought about it, and I said, wow, what a weird thing to do, because it doesn't have any legal basis. But what it says to me is, we know we took your land. And not only that, we're going to tell you we took your land. Yeah. And something needs to be done. Our government signed more than 377 treaties with the indigenous peoples, and they have not kept one. We teach our children not to lie. We teach our children, when you say something, do it. But we will accept the government, representatives of us, to lie, to cheat, to steal. At some point, we, the citizens, must hold our elected officials, our servants, responsible. Because at this point in our civilization, they are only responsible to the people who have the most money. And let me tell you, it is not me. So we need to do more than just the land recognition. And I hope that you will join me in writing your representative and your senators to say, honor the treaties. I believe, and I could be wrong, but all indigenous peoples in this nation would want that more so than hollow words of recognition. So if you could just take 5 minutes of your time and write a letter, not an email, to tell them, honor the treaties, because you represent me, and I am not a liar. I keep my word. This is what needs to be done. I have this moniker of a social printer, of an activist, and I don't feel that way. I feel I'm just a human being. I would like to say that there is nothing special about me, that all of us want to live in a civilization where there is equality and justice for all human beings. We all want to live in a world where we don't have to worry about war. We want to live in a world where fewer children are murdered in a war zone than in a school. I don't think that makes me unique. And if it does, then you need, or this civilization needs to look at what they are doing and why they are doing it. We spend billions to kill, and we're not willing to spend millions to save lives. We will fund missiles and planes that do not work, but we will not fund schools. We do not care about the poor. That is their problem. They did not take advantage of the resources that they have. But there are no resources. We have stripped them. We have stripped the parks. We have stripped the libraries. We are stripping the schools. All of these social services that people need, we are taking away from them. This has to stop. We are better than this. We are much better than this, and we must claim our humanity. We must reevaluate what our priorities are. Not what we say they are, but what they are. Money talks, bullshit walks. And right now, our priorities is one thing, war. That is the only thing that we are exporting to the rest of the world. That is the thing that generates most of the money for this civilization. And we have no qualms, not one qualm about spending money on war. The tragedy in Ukraine is only superseded by the tragedy that our Congress would not give $30 million for COVID. Yet there was no outcry. There was no outcry, rather. There was no protest. We are prepared to spend money to kill, but not to heal. What kind of civilization is this? Is this the best that we can be? Can we not be better? I know that we can be, because I have seen people be better. I have seen people reach out and help. I believe that if you really want to see people band together and help, go to those with the least, because they are willing to share the first, the most. There is something about that. People who have little are prepared to share. When I was growing up, a family in my town had about 8 kids. And the mother was talking to my mother and said, yeah, having someone else over isn't a big deal. We just split it up a little bit more so there's an extra plate to share. While other people in my town, who only had 2 children, wouldn't invite the people in to eat. I have been doing what I've been doing for about 30 years. And I am happy to do it. When I was first introduced to letterpress printing, I was excited by the process. And as I got more involved in it, I realized that in the world of fine press printing special books, what was missing was the words of my people, black folk. Very few books at that time were written about or for black people that would be considered a fine print book, an artist book, a rare book. And I made it my decision to print for my people, to print the words of my people. And I did that for about 2 years. And one January, I think it was in 1993, the Tribune listed 62 children under the age of 15 that had been murdered in Chicago metro area. 62 children. And I was taken aback by it, because these children were my son's contemporaries. But they had one thing in common for the majority of them. They were poor. They lived in an environment that did not allow them to grow. And in response to that, I had an exhibition at Crocs and Botanos, which was a huge bookstore in Chicago. And so I decided to do 64 placards, one for each child, with their name and how they died. And when you looked at the numbers, if the child was under the age of 10, they were normally killed by a caregiver. If they were over the age of 10, they died from a gunshot wound. What would cause another human being to take the life of a child? What pushes a person to that? What pushes a person to that? What kind of society is designed for that to happen in? Because it is a societal thing. It is not the individual. And I did it, and I went to Crocs and Botanos about 3 weeks after it was up. And the manager in charge of the department that invited me said that a woman came in and she looked up and she saw a friend's name up there and she just started crying, because there had really been no recognition of this death. by the greater society other than the article in the Tribune. And I went on about my business for a year, and the next year, there was, I think, 65 children murdered. So the numbers went up. And I did another installation for that. And as I was doing the printing, I said to myself, when is this going to cross over? When is it going to leap into the greater society? And then suddenly we started seeing mass shootings at schools. Not one child 1 week and another child another week, but 6 or 7 at the same time. And now, mass shootings are more common than helping people. We are held hostage by a small minority of people who believe that to own a gun is the American way. We are held hostage. If they were criminals holding us hostage, we would do away with them in a minute. If they were a foreign force coming here, our government would be all at arms to protect, so-called protect us. But these are citizens, a small minority, who say, no, we need to have this type of weapon, a semi-automatic weapon for our protection. And all those people that have it for their protection were not there last week to protect the children in Texas. They won't be there in 2 weeks or 3 weeks when the next mass murder happens. How many people must die because of this senselessness that we have in this country? That is a question that I hope all of you ask. Well, what can I do, Amos? I don't know. You know? But sometimes I think to myself that if we were confronted with the issues that Rosa Parks, Joanne Robertson, there would have been no civil rights movement. It was too risky, too chancy. I jokingly say that if our greater society that we have now existed in the 1600s, there would have been no Civil War, and I would still be enslaved. But those people said, I must do something. I will do something. Because greater harm will happen if I don't do something than if I do. I cannot live in a polluted civilization. I do not have to. My freedoms are being violated because someone else's freedoms are being violated. Now, most of us grew up with, what was it, duck and dodge, duck and cover? Yeah. And, you know, we can say, well, we had no control over that. That was a nuclear bomb, 2 countries at war possibility. But these are just people in the streets. These are not an army, just small individuals. I won't say they have twisted minds. I will say they live in a twisted civilization that twists minds. It is up to us to set the course right. We spend billions of dollars to entertain our children, but we are not prepared to spend that same money to protect them from the outcomes of our civilization that create individuals like that who do mass shootings. Why is that? Oh, I love my child, so I'm going to take them to Disney World. Love your child and make sure that they can grow up and they will not be killed in a school. Do you know where the most protected schools are in the United States of America? inner city schools. When was the last time you heard of a mass shooting in an inner city school? If I had children now, I would definitely move to the inner city. Because it's not going to happen. Because 20 years ago, you put police in the inner city schools. You put metal detectors. You had lockdowns because it was so horrifying for children. But now it's the safest place for your child to be, in this location. How did we get to this point? How did we get here with so many resources, with so much? I don't know. But it is time for us to plot a new course, a course that will allow our children and our grandchildren to live in peace. We live in a time when the latest news is that we are now experiencing plastics in our bodies. We have no idea what this is going to do to us, what this will do to future generations. But we are very comfortable with it. Yes, here in Washington, you have banned single-use plastic bags and single-use plastic, but it has to be everywhere because that is everywhere. It has to be banned. And you are not protected from it because you're in Washington. These plastics float upon the air like a germ, like a virus. They will go everywhere. There are no borders to protect you. So if plastics and single-use plastics are allowed in West Virginia, with time, they will make its way across the continent to Washington State. We are, at the beginning of the pandemic, we are all in this together. Where else can you be? This is the only planet we have that sustains life. This is it for us. We're not going to Mars. No, that is not going to happen in our lifetime or anyone's lifetime. How the hell is Elon Musk going to survive in Mars when he doesn't have the support, when he doesn't have what we call the essential workers there? This is it. This is all we have. And if we do not protect it, if we do not allow it to grow in the natural way, it will be our downfall. We are killing the planet that gives us life. And we all kind of know it, but we don't want to recognize it. But it is happening every day. And when we begin to recognize it, it will be too late. It's very much like when I was 22 years old. I weighed 140 pounds. But over the course of the next 50 years, I put on 60 pounds. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and I had 60 pounds. It wasn't like I woke up one morning and I had 10 pounds, and a couple of years later I had 10 pounds. It was just that incremental, 2 ounces a day, 3 ounces, 5 ounces. And now look at what I have. This is the way it's going to happen. It will seem so natural that we won't see it. We all know the tale about the frog in boiling water. We are that frog. This planet, this environment, is the boiling water. They say, oh, we haven't reached the tipping point yet. But I wonder, have we reached the point that will stop us from reaching the tipping point? And I don't think that has happened. We still have not seen the effects of 2020 on the environment. That is going to take time. What we've seen is the effects of maybe 2018, 2017 on the environment, because it's going to come slowly. And when we hit the tipping point, we will actually be beyond it. So we have to address this issue. And why is it that so many of us say that we care about it, but nothing gets done? Why is it that we're held hostage by a minority of people that don't care? We're supposed to be a democracy. So people, we should have the right to say no, and it is done. We should say we want to have universal public education that is funded at the same rates for all children, not just for the wealthy. And it is done. If one of us does not reach our full potential, we as a civilization does not reach our full potential. We have this myth that we can waste, we can destroy, which we have done to this continent since we first stepped foot on it. We just rampaged, thinking that it will be okay. My people came over here not to live, because up until the time that they abolished transatlantic slave trade, we were here to die, to work and die, and we would be replaced. And after they abolished it, and after they abolished something, but not slavery, we're the only industrial country that allows slavery in its civilization. It is written into our Constitution. But when they abolished chattel slavery owned by other citizens, they didn't know what to do with us. There were cries to send us back to Africa. Well, you know, many of the people had been born here, but they wanted to send us back. If they could, they probably would have annihilated us like we did the indigenous people, because we were waste. We were to be used, abused, and thrown away. And this is part of the United States of America that no one wants to discuss. But it wasn't just us. You know, what? In the 1800s, here in the United States, Irish were not considered white. Italians weren't considered white. And God knows how the English felt about the Irish. You know, they would treat a black man better than an Irishman in England in the 1700s, 1800s. It is something about our civilization that is warped, that we have never addressed, that we need to address if we are going to survive. And this is why I print, to bring about these questions. Why? Why is it that we still cling to the great man, but now it's the great person, you know, myth? Do you know the quickest way to shut down a hospital? The quickest way to shut down a hospital is get rid of the janitors. That is the quickest way to shut down a hospital. Because if the hospital is not cleaned, it cannot function. But you would think, oh, got to get rid of the administrators. Got to get rid of the doctors. No. You got to get rid of the people that we don't pay attention to, that we, for a moment, call essential workers, which are hollow words. I had a student that told me a story about a professor he was in, a class he was taking, and the professor, at the end of the semester, had a test, and the test had one question on it. What's the name of the janitor? These students walked by that individual at least 3 times a week. They saw him. They didn't know his name. Invisible. I'm at the university. I know who the president is. I know who my department head is. I know who my professors are. Well, who's the janitor? Why would I want to talk to the janitor? Because they're human beings. Because they have stories to tell. Because they have rich stories to tell. Because they have a contribution to our civilization. This is why I print. For those voices. At first it was the voices of my people. So they can be heard. I print so that those collections that have been buying books because they speak volumes of America, because they are finely printed, because they are unique and one of a kind. I wanted my people's voices there to say, we were here too. One of the things that I was most impressed this year at the dog ear was how diverse the collection was. And I don't think that that came about because of the George Floyd rebellion. I think it came about because now there are more BIPOC book artists in the world. And the collection collects book artists. But that unique voice is something that they really treasure and want. And I applaud them on it. And I know that because of the gesture that they have made by collecting, that will encourage more people to become book artists. And that's what we want. We want a large, diverse population of people who collect, make, read book artists. And I am so thankful that I am here to see this transition, this growth. There are collections that are much bigger than the one that you have here, that do not have the representation of BIPOC people that your collection has. Why do they have it? Because somebody loves artist books. They don't care where they come from. I mean, the thing that got me was there's a zine up there. And many collections will not collect zines because they don't see them as books. Also, a lot of them are made. Probably every week, 2,000 or 3,000 zines are made. So it would be a really huge task, Herculean task, to collect all the zines. But they are selective in what they collect. And I really, really applaud that. Because, I mean, seriously, no, I'm not going to collect zines. I mean, I myself have had collections that had my works for 10 years. But when I started making posters, they said, no, I don't want them anymore. And I'm like, okay, I really don't care. Broke my heart, but I didn't care. And I started making posters, and I started enjoying them. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was a book artist, and we were talking about collections. And he was boasting about the collections he was in. And I said, wow, you're in like 50 libraries. Really impressive libraries. I said, yeah, you know, me, I'm in about 20,000 homes in America. And that's where I want to be. I want my work to be accessible to the citizens of America, all citizens. Right now I'm having a dilemma because, for those of you who don't know it, there's a little something going on called inflation, and the price of everything is going up. But I cannot bring myself to raise the price of my posters that have been that way for 15 years. And one reason is because I couldn't afford my poster if it cost $30. And if I can't afford it, none of my friends can. And none of the people that I really hang out with can. So every year, my profit margin drops. And I think that's the new business model. You know, keep it and let your profit, and then what do? I make a few more posters. Also, I learned to live with a lot less. And this is something I think that happens when you reach that sweet point in your life. You realize that I don't need to chase consumerism. I just need a few basics. If you ask anyone who calls themselves an artist or a creative, what do you need? They'll say, I probably need a kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom, and maybe about 2,500 square feet so with my shop in. And it's like, well, what about a car? I think I could get, I think I can get along without it. If we had universal health care, this nation would change radically, because so many people keep their jobs because they need health care. And why do you need health care? Because we live in a civilization that creates a toxic environment for our bodies. So it's like, I'm gonna take this poison because I know there's a cure for it. I don't need the cure if I don't take the poison. If we stop the toxicity that is in this civilization, we will find that we don't need the cures. Sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. Sometimes the cure just builds so it gets worse. What we call progress may not even be progress. It just may be getting worse. When I was employed at AT&T, one of my things was to solve customers' problems with solutions using AT&T products. And they would see us coming, and they say, "Oh, you're going to solve our problems, great." And I would say, "Oh, no. I'm just creating a problem for 5 years down the pike. That's all I'm doing. This is a temporary stopgap. I'll be back in 5 years to fix the problem that I created today." And that's the kind of civilization we live in. We'll fix a problem to become a problem. And why do we do it? Because there's money in it. It's about chasing the dollar. We as a civilization chase the dollar the way that we as individuals chase the dollar. And the dollar is it's an illusion. We trade our time for money. Our time is finite. Money is not. But yet, we are trained that way. At least my generation was. Go out there, get yourself a good job, get yourself. What was the thing? He who dies with the most toys win? No, he who dies with the most toys is dead. That's what happens to the person with the most toys. And I have not heard anyone say that, "Oh, I like to be rich and dead." Most people say, "I like to be poor and alive." Well, middle class and alive, definitely. But very few people have said, "I want to be rich and dead." Because our time is our most precious. That is the only thing that is not renewable. And since it's the only thing that is not renewable, should we not have an environment that allows us to celebrate that allows us to reach our full potential? And if you deny one person from reaching their full potential, you deny yourself. We are all in this together. Remember the chaos theory? A butterfly flaps its wings in some place and a hurricane happens. It is just that simple. We are all connected. We are not separate. We are not individuals. We are a group. We survive as a group. We have been taught that we are individuals, that we don't need other people, that all we need is that what is it called? That nuclear family. But we don't need the nuclear family. We need the extended family. We need the community. We need to step up to the plate and build communities. This is why I print, to build a community. Because there is a community of letterpress printers. And when we get together, you see that community. There is a community of book artists. And when they get together, you see that community. But that community is just one of the many communities. And those communities intersect in all sorts of ways. But in one way, they are all tied together. And that is this planet, this environment. If we do not preserve this, we will not preserve ourselves. This is it. There was a TV show back in the 90s, I think it was called Babylon 9. You know, our last best chance. This is it. There's nothing out there for us. It's all right here. We have to preserve this planet. We have to preserve our humanity. We have to change the way that we are living. Is that 5 minutes? Anyone have any questions for me?
Yeah, do you believe in God?
Huh? No, but God believes in me. Yeah.
Do you believe God would let the world just get destroyed by crazy people?
Huh? Huh?
Do you believe that God would let the world, or whatever crazy people, get destroyed by crazy people?
Do you believe God has a sense of humor?
Yeah.
Okay, then she's probably laughing right now. So let me just say something. So when I started printing, I was printing a lot of African proverbs, and Richard Burton,
Yeah.
not the actor.
Oh.
There was an explorer in the 19th century that went to Africa, and he did several books on proverbs from West African countries. And I read these, and all of them were he. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Women had nothing to say. But then I thought about it and I said, well, number one, he was a white dude, Victorian. And let's face it, I don't know if you have ever studied African cultures, but women have their own society with their own rituals and initiations, and men don't go there. Nor do they tell men what they do there, because it ain't their business. So it was only natural that all the proverbs would be from a male perspective. But then I said, guess what? This is my printing press. I can do what I want. And people say, well, why did you do that as a she? I said, because it's my printing press. I can do what I want. And so I started, incorporating, and I do it now. I just changed the noun from he to she, and I may change it again. And why are we talking about pronouns, Malcolm X, and I'm going to misquote, said, when I is replaced with we, even illness becomes wellness. We have been an I society. It is time for us to be a we society. And I'm going to go to a conference, and they asked for my pronouns. And I wrote down we, us. And people think it's a joke. I said, no, think about it. If you say we, then you have some ownership in it. But if you didn't use a pronoun and you said someone's name all the time, would you really say bad things about them? Because, oh, girl, he's crazy. But if you said, oh, Tom's crazy, or Tom didn't, because I think that pronoun creates a barrier So that will allow us to deny that other individual their humanity. So, like, yeah, I like the pronoun we, but it's not the royal we. It's the divine one. Yeah, okay. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
If you were to design some kind of rite of passage for adolescents moving into what we call teenagehood, what would you have them do to give them some sort of harmonious, balanced sense of community, or some sense of responsibility in part of a group?
What I would have them do, I would have them live in a society where they are respected. I would have them live in a society where not only their parents but their elders look out for them. I would have them live in a society where they are taught their humanity. That is what I would have. It is not about the child going. It is about society. The society is the larger. They shape the child. And so that is what has to be changed, not the child. The rite of passage is to know that you are cared for, that someone will come to your defense or come to you when you need help, to know that there is someone that you can confide in. If it is not your parent, if it's not your grandparent, it's your uncle, it's your aunt, it's an older cousin. That's what I would do, because that is the rite of passage. The rite of passage is to allow them the fullness of their humanity. Y'all just like college students. You know?
You said it all, Amos. There isn't much left for
You covered all the bases.
This ain't no baseball game. This is real.
Well, that's a baseball game still. It's like hitting back and forth. So
Yeah.
you hit all the points.
Okay, yeah.
Amos, you were mentioning your decision to we were saying, well, my work is in 20,000 households, and it reminded me so much of some of the philosophies of the Mexican workshops around the time of the revolution. Was that something that you had modeled off of, or is this
No, I
something
was
that you
unaware of that. I mean, the whole thing, we live in this, again, this is a societal thing, and like, I got a pet peeve, okay? I really got a pet peeve. It's called ART. All right? That's a real, that's a bee in my bonnet. And that's what it's about, I believe that everyone has a gift, and it is a proper society that allows that individual the environment for that gift to grow so they can share it with society. That gift could be, as a farmer. That gift could be as a metalsmith. That gift could be as a weaver. But it's the society's responsibility. I may have a half-cocked notion, but I went to a museum, and they had all this pottery from like 1 BC. And pottery, 1 BC, Syria. And you know what was missing? Somebody's name. Because somebody made that pottery, the person in town. That was their gift, and they returned it to the community so it could be used as a pot. It could be used to store grain in. And so that's what I don't even consider myself a printer, because printers are serious about what they do. They take under a lot of consideration. I just kind of skip through the world happy. I'm really, people say I'm a bad printer. I say, yep. But, the people who do that work, they do it because it's the work they do. G's Ben's quilts, those women didn't say, You know what I want to do? In 10 years, I want to have an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art. You know? Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm.
That's so great.
Huh?
That's so great. I mean, it's true.
Yeah. But where do they have an exhibition?
In the Modern Art Museum.
Right. Suddenly it became art. For 100 years, it was a quilt to sleep under. And you know what really pisses me off? They got these people, and after you're in the room, you know, I'm sorry. You know, if somebody sleeps under my quilt, I'm going to take it away from them. It's supposed to be hung on the wall. I'm like, it ain't a quilt. Call it a wall hanging. But it ain't a quilt. Quilts were made for people to sleep under. Women made quilts to keep their family warm. You know, none of the people who made quilts up until, like, say, 1920 said, oh, no, we're just going to hang this on the wall and you can freeze to death tonight. No. Yeah, so I was totally unaware of that. But, you know, yes, it's about making things for the people. You know, making things not to be in a museum, but for the people. Let it be there. Let the people celebrate your creativity.
And they were authentic.
Yes. Yes.
Do you make zines?
Do I make things?
Do you
Zine.
make zines?
Yes, I do make zines.
Where can I get them?
Oh, well, see, the thing is, and so this is the other thing. You know, the thing about printing is that, and everyone who's been here said it, printing is multiples. That's why you print, to make multiples. And, you know, when I started printing, I had a job, I was employed, and I rode the L to downtown Chicago. And I would print something at night, and I'd get off the L and hand it out to people. It didn't make me any difference. You know, I was making good money. I could buy the paper, you know. I was printing in a community print shop, so I didn't have to buy the press. And it was just fun to see people be happy. Even now, I get a kick out of, you know, people smiling when they get something. I was telling someone, if you were going to visit my shop, you know, you leave with a stack of posters this big. You know, like, why, you know, like Amos, I can't take it. Yes, you have to take it, because I need space so I can print some more. You know, because I love to print. And I make zines, but I've given them all away. You know, it's like, oh, you know, I don't have any of my work from 30 years ago. It's been given away, you know, because, you know, like, you know, I'm just making, and I've given work away, and I really, yes, I do know that people have sold it on the secondary market. And they didn't buy it. I gave it to them, you know. But, hey, I didn't care, you know. They didn't like it, so at least somebody somewhere has it. As a matter of fact, one of them was in a library. I said, well, it's safe there, you know.
Not really.
Yeah. Oh, yes, yeah. In special collections, it's way safe, you know, because it takes a lot to get a book out of special collections. You know, you just don't walk up and pull it off the shelf. Yeah, but I make zines. I love zines. But I love letterpress printing. I love the manipulation of the type. I love locking things up. You know what is the coolest thing in the world? The coolest thing in the world is to watch someone who has been mastered by their craft. I believe you don't master a craft masters you. You know? And if you see someone, for those of you who are letterpress printers, you see someone walk up to a press bed and say, I'm going to lock this puppy up. And they just go, and you're like, oh. That is beautiful. Bob Cicero. Yeah, Bob Cicero. Bob Cicero is a printer in Baltimore. His family owned Globe posters. They made posters for the go-go movement. They made posters for rhythm and blues for years. You know, watching Bob Cicero is watching someone who has totally been mastered, who can look and say, give me that one piece, and it fits perfectly. That is a joy. And I want everyone to have that joy. I don't care what, you know, if it's double entry accounting that excites you, get excited. Yeah, people get excited by double entry accounting, you know. I mean, you want to see some people freak out? Get with some serious programmers, you know, all night writing code. Why? Because I wanted to cut down on the sorting by 1/10 of a second. I know we can make that faster. And, they just love it. And everybody has that inside of them. And as a civilization, that should be our obligation to let that shine. We waste. How do you know that Michael Brown didn't have the cure for cancer? You didn't give him schools good enough to be developed as a scientist. You didn't give him summer jobs and exposure. So how much talent are we wasting? We cannot afford to waste a single soul on this planet. We are all as precious as we think we are. We are all as sacred and as holy as we think we are as an individual. And if someone else's rights are being denied, if they're not being allowed to fully mature, then we are not. You cannot be 100% with 90%. You can only be 100% with 100%. Ah!
Okay.
I tell people I'm kind of like, some days I'm kind of like the party pooper.
You're on a flow tonight, Amos. You're on a flow with the show. You're going with the book show.
Some people need their parties fixed. It's okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the things about artist books, is that artist books really do address issues that others won't. And not only that, if you see that issue in a novel, you've seen it numerous times, so you're kind of immune to it. And also you've seen it as text. With an artist book, it is text and image. In the documentary that they did, a friend of mine said, there was someone in there said, sometimes the way to convey something that is extremely traumatic is through great beauty, because it juxtaposed the two. And they were I think they were talking about my book, Strange Fruit, which was based upon Richard Allen's Strange Fruit song. And it was all about lynching. And because, we're a horrible country. Did you know that as late as the 1800s, you could kill an Indian and get a bounty? Yes. The law probably hadn't been changed, because once they make a law, very seldom do they take the law away. We have billions of laws in this country. And people are like, oh God, look at this new law. They got laws that are just as stupid that were written 100 years ago, never taken off the books. But as late as the 1800s, I saw an image from a newspaper of a group of Europeans in the West, and they were shooting at these indigenous, primarily women and children, because, hey, we need the land. There's maybe gold on it. The government says if you kill them, you get $1,200, bunch of money. It's, it is so bizarre. We hold ourselves up as this noble nation. I guess the more noble you are, the greater the crimes you have committed.
They only just passed an anti-lynching law in Congress this year.
Yes. And it barely passed. It barely passed. But then again, we live in a country that you can kill 19 children under the age of 11. Where else does this happen? Let's go to deepest, darkest Africa. Do they murder their children like that? Let's go to the uncivilized people. We're a great civilization. We murder our children. When that happened, my brother called me up and said, hey, yo, bro, you know what? I said, what? We back to normal. that's it. We're back to normal now. There was a mass murder in Buffalo, mass murder here. There's been like a couple of hundred. This is, people forget that mass murders was part of the normality of this country. It is not an abnormality. It's normal.
You have anything good to say?
Yeah, I got something good to say, woman. I'm moving into my shop. After, what was it? How long has it been? 7 years. So for those of you who don't know, I'm building a shop in Detroit. Because one of the things I've encountered when I was traveling around teaching at universities is that, students get excited about letterpress printing. They graduate and there's no place for them to do it. There are community centers. But the community centers have to make money. So you got to pay for it. And then you got to move there. And then you got to find a place to live. And blah, 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 And I'm like, I'm an old fart. I should do something before I die that has some sort of worth to it. And, I like to tell people that I'm probably the only 1%er that you know in this world. Because my accountant did my taxes, and 99% of the world makes more money than me. You forget there's 1%. But hey, the good thing is, when they call the 1%ers to go, I go. So I said, what I'm going to do is, I have more than one printing press. I have 12. Oh yeah, I have lots of them. And I said, okay, so what I'm going to do is Detroit is a fairly inexpensive place to live. So 7 years ago, I bought a 3,000 square foot building for $2,100.
That's good.
Close your mouth. And I've been spending, I did 2 Indigo campaigns. And, again, this is the community. And people chipped in. And I have restored it, and I'm moving in this year. And once I move in, I'm going to open it up for students who want to make a book or want to print, want to experience. Come on over here. I got a 2-bedroom apartment. If you don't mind staying with an old man who snores, you can sleep there and and go to work every day. And people say, "Wow, that's very noble of you." I say, no, it isn't. This is what human beings do. Human beings help human beings. And so that is getting done. So that's some good news. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that, are you happy? Okay, time's up, right?
Well, that's my cue.
I don't want to be like Robin when you tell her, hey, time's up.